my name is Dr. David Brust, and I've been a practicing exotic veterinarian for the last 25 years. I'm the author of Sugar Gliders, a complete veterinary care guide, and I'm also president of the Association of Sugar Glider Veterinarians. The purpose of this video series is to cut through all the internet misinformation out there and teach owners like you the best veterinary approved ways to raise and care for sugar gliders. Now, just to make sure we're all on the same page here, sugar gliders are also commonly known as sugar bears and also as honey gliders. And with that in mind, the goal of this video is to show you the best way to pick up one of these little guys. Surprisingly enough, one of the most stressful things on a new owner and a baby is just picking them up. This is because, especially in the beginning, these little guys are really good at scaring or intimidating new owners who don't know what to expect. You see, sugar gliders really don't have many natural defenses in the wild. They're pretty much the bottom of the food chain, especially as babies, and they can't really bite hard enough to hurt anything. However, they do have one very effective defense, and that is to act really tough and scary. They do this by standing up on their hind legs and swatting or striking while making a very loud chattering or crabbing noise that sounds similar to a locust. In fact, that's actually one of the reasons they are also called sugar bears, because when they're acting all big and tough, they kind of look like a miniature grizzly bear. Now, typically, the only times they will do this is when they're little babies and haven't completely bonded to their new family yet, or later on as adults when they suddenly feel threatened by something. The thing is, even though the whole thing is just a big act and they can't really do any harm, especially as babies, they are so good at being scary that I've actually seen them scare the heck out of big, burly men to the point where they won't even go anywhere near the cage. Well, the good news is there's absolutely no need to be afraid, because like I said, the whole thing is really just a big act. The important thing here is not to let yourself get intimidated by these little guys, because you need to take charge and bond with them. Like a lot of animals, sugar gliders can sense fear, and if they know they can get away with scaring you, they will. Now, don't worry, we'll talk a lot more about specific bonding techniques in other videos. So right now, we're just going to focus on the first step, which is showing you the best way to pick them up. Okay, one of the most important things about bonding with a new baby is also the easiest, and that's making sure your cage is set up properly. Contrary to what a lot of crazy internet sites say, a great big cage is not the best thing for a baby sugar glider. This cage is about 18 inches by 18 inches by 24 inches, and veterinary research has proven that it's the ideal size for young sugar gliders for a lot of reasons. Now, from a bonding standpoint, one of the main reasons why you don't want a cage much bigger than this is you need to be able to easily reach in the cage and grab the baby wherever it is. The faster and easier you can pick up the animal, the less stress there will be on both you and them, and you can always want to create the least amount of stress possible while still accomplishing your goal, which is bonding. Now, just to reiterate, you are the parent here, which means you're the boss. Some amateur websites will try and tell new owners that babies need a great big cage and you need to let the baby dictate the terms of your relationship. Well, that's simply garbage. Probably the best analogy I can think of for people who let their animals call all the shots would be those poor parents in supermarkets. You know the ones, you've all seen them. They're little ones with little kids who are absolute terrors, throwing things around, making a huge fuss whenever they don't get their way, and generally terrorizing their parents. Now, it's certainly your right if you want to parent like that, but keep in mind, like we've said many times in this video series, sugar gliders are a lot like little kids. If you don't take control and instead let them be the boss, you'll almost always end up like that poor parent in the supermarket and never develop the full loving relationship that is possible with these little guys. On the other hand, if you follow the techniques on these videos and don't give up, you will have a loving, lifelong companion that can go with you almost anywhere. Okay, now, keeping all this in mind, let's get back to the cage setup. When it comes to different sleeping or alternatives, the best option is, again, to use an electric heat rock in combination with a nesting cloth. Contrary to what a lot of internet sites say, we do not recommend the use of hanging fleece pouch or a nest box inside the cage while the babies are still bonding. Veterinary research has shown that using a heat rock and nesting cloth like this can actually reduce stress in young babies by up to 93%, simply because it's so much easier to pick up the baby and get them into your hands without stressing them out. When you have the heat rock and nesting cloth inside the cage like this, you'll almost always find your baby sleeping somewhere underneath the cloth. If possible, it's best to install the heat rock as close to the door of the cage as possible so you can easily reach in and get it. Sugar gliders usually aren't chewers like rodents, but just to be safe, always zip tie the rock close to the door. Now, if you ever do happen to notice them chewing on the rock itself, it's usually because something sweet like juice from their apple got on it. In that case, just wash the rock off with dish soap and water. It usually will stop this behavior. Now, when it comes to nesting cloth, you basically want just to use some sort of material that won't unravel, like the fleece we have here. Actually, one of the best things to do is take a small piece of clothing from everybody in the family that has everyone's scent on it, put it in the cage. You can also rub a piece of cloth or fleece all over everybody, including other pets, and that works well too. The thing is, baby sugar gliders bond largely by smell. So this way they're surrounded by your smell even when they're sleeping. This is a neat little shortcut that really helps speed up the bonding process. Okay, so like I said, when you go to pick your baby up, it will almost always be sleeping somewhere under this cloth. Now, if the baby happens to be already running around the cage when you want to pick it up, we have another video that shows you how to do that. Right now, we're going to assume that the baby is sleeping. In this situation, all you do is gently pat down the cloth to locate the baby. Sometimes it may wake up, make a little noise when you do this, and that's fine. Once you find the baby, just scoop it up into your cloth and all into your hand. This way, the baby's still warm and snuggled up inside the cloth. And once you've got it out of the cage, which is half the battle. From here, you can either directly put the baby into a bonding pouch or into your bare hands just by transferring over like this. Once you practice this a few times, you'll get pretty good at it, and a lot of times the baby won't even wake up until it's already safe in your hands. Like I said before, the heat rock nesting cloth combination is by far the best sleeping alternative for your baby. But if for some reason you're using a hanging fleece pouch inside the cage, here's what you do. First, make sure your bonding pouch is attached to the cage with plastic or stainless steel clips that are easy to take off. This is very important because you want to get the pouch out of the cage quickly before the baby wakes up and starts stressing. Once you have the clips off, take the pouch out of the cage like this, holding it shut so the baby doesn't jump out. At this point, if you're a new owner that is not completely comfortable with handling joeys, it's best not to reach inside the pouch directly. If you do, what the baby basically senses is a strange smell from somebody they don't know, along with a blinding bright light and 5 giant fingers that look like telephone poles coming at them. Not only does this put a lot of unnecessary stress on the baby, but a lot of times you'll also end up getting nipped. Once you have the baby in your hand, now it's time to move on to the next video in this series, which shows you how to get used to holding your baby and handle it while you're still bonding.